Most players think whales win because their decks let them reach higher ceilings, but in Umamusume the ceiling is fixed. The truth is simpler and more important. Whale decks don't raise the ceiling, they raise the floor. Hi, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, class. This is Mr. Arocena, and before we plan on how to adapt our stable to a championship meeting it's not suited for, we need to understand how support decks raise our floor. So for example, if the speed cap is 1200, you can't exceed 1200. This ceiling is the same for everyone. So if whales aren't raising the ceiling, what are they doing? They are raising the floor, the minimum result that you can expect. A weak deck has a low floor, and a strong deck has a high floor. So with a weak deck, your runs end up lower and can swing quite wide in quality. With a strong deck, your runs are consistently high quality. So think of every career run as a spread of possible outcomes. With a weak deck, most of your results will cluster further from the ceiling, and a few rare runs will get close to it. With a strong deck, your results cluster closer to the ceiling. The ceiling itself doesn't change, only where most of your runs land. That means a free-to-play player can reach whale level stats. They just have to do more runs until they get that rare high roll. If your deck is weak, the only way to reach the ceiling or get close to it is by hitting a high roll outlier. That's why runs matter. More runs will increase the chance of hitting that rare high roll. Whales don't need as many runs because their deck shifts the distribution of results higher. Their typical run is closer to the ceiling, but they still benefit from doing more runs because it still increases the chance of getting an outlier in both directions. Here's a real example from my own stable, and I've realized that after months of playing this game, my typical support deck is now whale tier. Most of my results are A+. That's the typical outcome range. There's a few S ranks and a couple of A ranks. But sometimes even with the best deck, you can still hit a rare low roll. This E rank is an extreme outlier, so the very left of the distribution. It doesn't happen often, but it does prove the point that variance still exists. Free-to-play players can still get there too, but it's rare. It's the extreme right tail of this distribution. Now, stats training isn't the only RNG, skill hints add another layer. One thing to note though is that most skill hints don't raise the stats ceiling, the exception being the green stat skills. What they do change is your performance floor depending on the skills that you hit. This performance floor is how effective your Uma is given the stats and the skills you manage to get. Every ace requires skills that are relevant to the track, so your ability to hit those skills affects your performance floor. Now, if Umas have a performance floor, their performance ceiling is basically just max stats plus every ideal skill for the track. That ceiling is theoretical though because you can't guarantee the right skills every run, and there's currently no way to hit every stat at 1200 that I'm aware of. So here's the key lesson. Support decks don't raise your ceiling, they raise your floor. A whale deck raises your floor so you are consistently closer to the ceiling. But a weak deck can still get close to the ceiling, it just needs a rare high roll run. If you want to test this idea for yourself, here's a quick Tracen Lab you can do. Try 2 to 3 runs or more with a low tier deck, probably consisting mostly of SR or R cards. Then do the same 2 to 3 runs with a stronger deck, so use your best deck basically, like max MLB SSRs, MLB SRs, and so on. Use the same Uma and same parents and use similar training priorities when possible. Then compare which deck felt more consistent, which runs were salvageable, and which felt like a total loss. Post your results in the comments, and I want to see if anyone gets a higher roll with a weak deck and how close it is to a stronger deck's result. Now that we have this framework of what a support deck does, we can use this to help us adapt our stable for any upcoming CM, even if our stable isn't naturally built for it. See you guys next class.